Retired General Bantu Olumisa. Also take this opportunity to welcome all the members of the Portfolio Committee, welcome the team from the Office of the Minister, as well as the Office of the Portfolio Committee for Defense and Parliamentary Staff. Also take this opportunity to welcome the team from Denel, led by the CEO. Welcome the team from Armscor, led by the CEO. You are all welcome to the Portfolio Committee that today we are going to deal with the business of approving the APPs for adoption by Parliament next week. And also welcome our Deputy Minister, Richard Mukungo. You are all welcome, honorable members and the two teams. Today, I hope we are going to be faster. Yesterday, only one APP of the DMV took us 3 hours, and today we have 2 of the Denel and the Armscor, which I hope we must finish them today because we need to prepare our report and submit it by Friday to Treasury so that it's tabled before the National Assembly next week, Wednesday, our budget vote, 23 and 26, for adoption by the National Assembly. So I would not want to waste a lot of time today through open remarks, but to go straight to apologies so that we move after that to the adoption of the agenda and deal with the business of the day. Over to you, Secretariat.
Thank you, Chair. We've received one apology from the Honorable Minister, who has been requested by the President to represent him and the country at the inauguration of the President-elect of the Republic of Uganda. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. That is the apology that we have received from the Office of the Minister, who is out of the country on the business of representing the country at the inauguration of President Yoweri Museveni, who's been re-elected for the 7th term in the Republic of Uganda. I would immediately go to the adoption of the agenda. The agenda before us is we are dealing with the Denel APP. Immediately after that, we'll then introduce the Denel, the new board. We'll deal with the Armscor APP and then closure. Those are the items for agenda today. Can we get a move and a seconder before I allow our DMs to do an overview?
Chair, I've raised my hand.
Yes, Honorable Niels.
I raised it to move that we adopt the agenda. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Niels. Any seconder?
So I
Honorable
move, Chair.
Chair.
Over to you.
Yeah, Chair, I wanted us to note their apology, and I agree that we second the agenda as proposed by Honorable Member.
Thank you very much, Honorable Whip Munyai. The agenda is adopted. I'll then hand over to, I don't know who among the two DMs is leading the delegation of the executive. Over to you, General.
Thank you, Chairperson and honorable members, my colleague, as well as the officials from Denel and Armscor, as well as from the Department of Defense. I will immediately hand over to Denel to present their report, and we engage them immediately after that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable DM. Denel, over to you. You can share your presentation.
Good afternoon, Honorable Chair, and honorable members of the committee. Good afternoon, Deputy Minister, and good afternoon to the board of Denel and my colleagues from Denel and from Armscor. Chair, I'm going to share the presentation. I don't have sharing rights, Chair, if I can be enabled.
Secretariat?
Apologies, sir. Can you not see the presentation? I'm sharing it on from my side.
Okay, no.
Okay. Can you put it on slide show?
Give me a second, sir. Can the secretary just give Mr. Monaim sharing rights as well? Might be easier for him.
He does have sharing rights. He can show on his side.
Okay.
Thank you, dear.
Okay, thank you. I can now see. Can I confirm that the presentation is visible?
Yes.
Thank you, Chair. In the interest of time, I'll go straight to the contents of the presentation that talks to Denel, the company, the state-owned company. And secondly, talk to our environment where we operate and our strategy to ensure that Denel fully recovers. And then our performance management, the KPAs and KPIs for the financial year 2026-27. And we have identified some risks whilst we navigate the recovery of Denel and also the mitigations to ensure that the risks don't materialize. And we thought we should also share the status of our associate companies. And lastly, we'll talk to the financials that will enable the committee to have visibility in the sustainability and going concern status of Denel. Chair, Denel, as a state-owned company, we, unlike some of state-owned entities, we are a commercially driven company. We have to generate revenue for us to survive. So we are not fortunate to have allocation. So every cent we have to make sure that we earn it through the operations. And the primary purpose of Denel is the designing and development, manufacturing and supporting of technologies and solutions for SANDF, whilst it executes its mandate of safeguarding the people of the country. And this primary purpose is highlighted in the Defense Review 2015, specifically on Chapter 15 of the Defense Review. That states clearly that Denel is a national security asset that is charged with sovereign and strategic defense capabilities, technologies, and abilities to ensure that our defense force is able to execute its mandate. And in some cases, Chair and members, Denel has to do some of the work at risk because of its mandate. And also sometimes we have to do some work that may not be commercially viable, but it's in the best interest of SNDF and in the best interest of the security of the country. And I thought I should talk about the purpose of Denel as well, which links to the previous slides. That the first purpose is for Denel to supply the country with defense and security solutions. And we have to ensure that the company is financially sustainable by ensuring that all operations are delivering as intended, which hasn't been the case for some years. But in our recovery journey, we are changing this around so that we ensure that all programs are delivering, because the structure of Denel is based on successful execution of programs. If the programs are executed successfully, it means the company is going to be successful. But if the programs are late, are delayed, and are loss-making, it means the company is going to be loss-making. And we also realize that we have to leverage on indigenous capabilities, because they are still very competitive globally. For us is to just ensure that we enhance and modernize these capabilities. We have socio-economic imperatives that we have to respond to, and we are committed to those. And as well, being a responsible corporate citizen by ensuring that Denel is managed to the expectation of the shareholder. The footprint of Denel, it's spread between 2 provinces. Gauteng holds most of the activities of Denel, or the operations of Denel, and Western Cape hosts just a few, which is the Overberg test range, and then the entities of Rheinmetall Denel munitions in both Wellington and Somerset West. And then we have Denel Space Tech in Gauteng, which is the satellite manufacturing facility. And we also have the associates, which are in the country, but one of the associates is in the Middle East, in Abu Dhabi. We also have offices that are outside the country. We have an office in Malaysia. We have an office in Abu Dhabi, and we have an office in Brazil. These offices ensure that we are able to expand our business in the global market. Our structure is centered around the capability areas. We have Denel Dynamics, which holds the sovereign capabilities for the country in the missiles, unmanned systems, and precision-guided munitions. We also have the sovereign capabilities housed in Landward in Littleton. That the products coming out of that entity is infantry and armored vehicles. We also have small weapons and ammunition, small caliber weapons and ammunition. The aerospace part of the business, which is based in Kempton Park and in Overberg, focuses mainly on maintenance and testing. The aerospace business is an OEM of the Rayfalk and the Oryx. But since we are not producing Rayfalk and Oryx, we are focusing on maintenance of these platforms and other platforms, including the C-130. Ideally, we would like to continue the production part in these facilities, but we're hoping that going forward, this is going to be possible. And then we are looking into space to create a business of space, and that division is currently under review. The board is looking into this division, whether it's viable to have such a division. The thinking is that we have space tech and OTR. That means we have the satellite manufacturing and ground station manufacturing in Gauteng, and then we'll have the launch capability in Overbeck at the Overbeck test range. And we also have the integrated systems solutions, which is a sovereign capability for the country. And it's mainly focused on the ground-based air defense system. And Chair and members, we have identified as well that we have properties in the two provinces, but we don't optimally derive value out of them. So we are focusing now to ensure that our properties are generating value for the company. And PMP, we are continuing, even though it's within the landlord division, but we are continuing with its being a project until it's fully recovered. We're hoping that by end of this year, it will be completely out of intensive care, and then it can be plugged back fully into landward. But the progress on the recovery and turnaround of PMP is moving well. We just have to fast track this recovery. And then the operating model of Denel, it's based on the structure, and it's mainly saying that for Denel to succeed, all the business areas of Denel have to be successful. And all these businesses must respond to the customer. It must be market facing. So we have to understand what the customer wants and respond to that, and not drive or push products to customers. So that's the current operating model that says, let's listen to what SNDF is saying, and we provide solutions for SNDF, and not go to SNDF and say, we want to sell you the following. And Denel is cannot operate as an island, and that we have already realized a few years ago that Denel is part of the defense industry ecosystem in the country. And in some cases, we are part of the global defense ecosystem. So we can't operate in isolation. That says we are going to have a very formal relationship with some of the stakeholders. Some of the relationships may not be formal, but may be mutually beneficial to the entities. And our key partner in this journey of recovery is the SNDF and Armscor. And we also have CSIR in terms of the bottoms up from technology, from R&D technology into products. The business environment that we operate in, we needed to do an analysis so that when we say we are going to execute the recovery and growth of Denel, we understand the environment very well, so that we don't think we are moving the right direction and we find ourselves where we come from. So the first element, key element, is the geopolitical instability. Because Denel, as a defense company, cannot do business without the country-to-country relationship. So if there's political or changes in governments in the where we are doing business, it directly affects our business. Sometimes contracts, when there's change of governments, contracts are cancelled or delayed, which impacts on our doing of the business. And in some cases, budgets are changed, which affects what the defense of the destined countries have agreed with us. So that is very critical for us to ensure that we monitor the geopolitical situation very closely. And the decision for us to do business with friendly countries help us to navigate this environment that we are going to focus on SNDF and countries that are friendly to South Africa, because it becomes a country-to-country relationship. And then supply chain disruptions for us are key, because we do business we don't build everything internally. We are system integrators in most cases. So we buy subsystems. Some of the subsystems come from offshore. And if there are problems of supply chain coming into the country, it affects us directly. And in some cases, we have customers. We have to export so that we can invoice and get money. And if there are disruptions on the shipping routes, it affects us directly. Cybersecurity, cyber threats and espionage is a reality in the defense industry. It's a daily threat that we have to manage on a daily basis. And the regulatory and ethical compliance is key to us. Defense forces and countries don't want to do business with a company that's non-compliant. They make it very clear upfront. And what has come out clearly, especially when we go to the international market, is before we can conclude a contract, the countries are asking for their own industry participation. So most countries are asking for a minimum of 30% localization. And as we develop or drive our campaigns in foreign countries, we have to take care of localization. So it has to be part of our campaign strategy. In some cases, would be a supply of subsystems. In some cases, is access to market and the company in country assisting us to service the defense force in that country, because they are closer and they understand the environment better than we do. So it's integral to our doing business. And technical capabilities as well is key. Our environment is in terms of skills and technologies, it moves very quickly. So it's very important for us to continue closing the gap so that we can be relevant. And it's important for us as we execute our corporate plan that we understand the market. And we have identified areas that are dials that if we dial them and synchronize them well, we are going to be able to succeed. One of them is building strategic partnerships. In modern day business development, unless we involve the countries that we want to do business in, whether it's in market penetration or it's in technology level or project-based relationship, we have to include them for us to penetrate the market. And the other important one is diversification of our markets, collaboration with industry leaders and technology providers, which is linked to partnerships. And we have to understand the geopolitical landscape. Most of our business is done at home, in the continent, and in the Middle East. And if anything happens in the Middle East, it can be very good for us or it can be very bad for us. So we have, in our corporate plan, we are planning to move into East Asia and South America so that we can diversify our market reach so that we eliminate the risk that would be brought in by geopolitical dynamics. And also product technologies are key. and product diversifications are for us to penetrate the markets. And in most cases, we realize that for us to successfully execute the corporate plan, even on the product diversification, we are going to need partnerships at some level. And product technology roadmaps, we are going to need partnerships at some level. And we did a SWOT analysis to say, are we going to successfully execute our corporate plan? And we identified the strengths from within and within weaknesses from within and externally opportunities and threats. It's a long list, but the critical one in terms of strengths is Denel now reporting to DOD. It's critical for us because now we are aligned with the requirements of SNDF. We have worked closely with Armscor so that the country can be serviced much better. And the weakness, there are quite a few weaknesses that we have identified. The weak balance sheet that we have, especially in terms of liquidity, because when you look at our balance sheet, you can say, our total assets outweigh our liabilities. But we can't, the current assets, we can't change the assets quickly into cash. So we still have to make sure that our balance sheet it's moved towards cash in the bank. And the liquidity challenge causes problems in terms of execution of contracts. Because how we contract, we get a contract, we start working. If we don't have cash in the bank to start working so that we can invoice and get money, then we have to get into an arrangement with the client to get prepayments from the client to say, can you please give us 20% of prepayment so that we can start buying material and start executing before we invoice. And then they will ask for guarantees against the prepayment. And it takes forever. It takes a very long time for us to raise guarantees. And if the members remember that a few years ago, Denel lost a very huge contract because Denel couldn't raise guarantees. If that contract was executed, Dynamics would still be on top of its game as we speak today. And the other weakness is for some years, Denel was not delivering on time. And that has an effect on the perception that customers have of Denel out there. And that affects our execution of the corporate plan because it's based on getting orders in, executing the orders, and realizing revenue. But if our customers are reluctant to contract with us based on historical performance, that is going to affect our execution. So what we focused on now is to ensure that all historical contracts are being delivered as per the new agreements. And we go back to all these customers and make new commitments to say we shall not go that route again of disappointing the customers. In terms of opportunities, we have quite a number of opportunities that we are looking into. Our closeness to SNDF in terms of us being able to strategically respond to SNDF closely, that's going to help us a lot. And the African market, it's a huge market that we believe strongly that if we participate successfully, we should be able to have a completely different Denel in terms of big Denel in the country, but big Denel that has reach in the continent with different partnerships in the continent. Because we don't only want to sell products, but we want to also enable the countries, some of the countries in the continent to have abilities to do some of the components or parts that we may need in our supply chain. And then we have threats, raising financial guarantees. I think that I spoke about that. We have identified that as a big threat to us. And also aging workforce, in terms of skills, workforce is a problem, and it's not only a Denel problem. It's a countrywide problem, which because we don't have exciting programs that attract young people in defense. So we have to change this to have programs that will attract young people into defense, because as the older people retire, they're going to leave a gap in terms of execution of these defense programs. The strategic intent statement, which is the shareholders' message to Denel through the board of Denel, is the first element is to ensure that Denel supports and maintains DoD's sovereign and strategic capabilities. That's at the top of the expectations. And secondly, we have to ensure that we drive operational excellence so that we deliver on time as per customer expectation. And if we do that, then we'll be able to generate revenues, and then we won't have problems with profitability and cash generation. And we also will not have a problem in having a strong balance sheet so that we don't have to go back to government for recapitalization funding. Growing the order book is a starting point for success. And in some cases, we are going to need strategic partnerships to ensure that we achieve the order books and execute the business. Internal controls collapsed Denel. The failure of internal controls collapsed Denel a few years ago. And for us, it's key that in response to the strategic intent statement, that we ensure strong and credible internal controls. Because if we don't, we can work hard in getting revenue, getting everything in, but there will be leakages in the business. And before we know, we are not profitable, we don't generate cash, but we have huge top line. And then compliance for us is key in terms of policies and laws and treaties that regulate the defense industry. We cannot do business unless we are compliant. Even if we have to sell, we have to be compliant in terms of how we sell, who we sell to. And the working internally, we have to be compliant in terms of the environment where we operate from. We identified 6 key strategic pillars that are going to assist execute the corporate plan. And they talk to the previous slides. Support to NCDF, we spoke about it. Financial sustainability is going to help us to be able to reinvest in the company, grow the company, service the customers better. And then growth and market expansion, that helps us to increase our pie so that we have higher chances of getting contracts. And operational excellence is the base for Denel. Without that, we are not going to be able to execute the contracts, and we won't be able to achieve our full turnaround. And people and culture is key, and governance and oversight and control environment are key, as mentioned earlier. The strategic goals are linked to
and many
objectives are just
are in real trouble, like the NHLS, which is
This slide talks to research and development. In our environment, the products that are competitive today will not be competitive in 5 years' time. So we have to continue to innovate and advance our products. With a weak balance sheet, it means that we'll have to have a lot of strategic partnerships that we'll work with in terms of technology partnerships for us to achieve quicker the advanced or the modernized products. And ours, to achieve this, we are saying that Denel shouldn't be asking for recap money, but should be focused on this area to ask for investment in technologies and capacities for us to be able to be ready to support Defence Force at any point in time, and on any product that the Defence Force may need. And it's hinged around technologies and capabilities. And as we navigate the growth of Denel, we realize that if we think that our balance sheet is going to help us, it's not going to do that. And going back to government for recap, we don't want to be doing that. So we said the best solution for us to successfully execute our corporate plan is to identify strategic partnerships at different levels. It doesn't necessarily have to be equity. It can be project-based. It can be funding-based. And we have identified projects already. It's quite a long list that we have identified. And immediately we are talking about partnerships at PMP at the different areas, the foundry, Detonics, and the lines for both small caliber and medium caliber. And area we have identified areas of partnerships with OEMs, Brazil OEM, France OEM, and space as well. We have identified that we have to grow this area, and we are not going to be able to do it unless we have strategic partnerships. Space, the space tech for the production of satellites and ground stations, we are going to need in excess of 2 billion rands to get it to the level of space campus that will be servicing the whole continent. And we don't have 2 billion, but if we have smart partnerships in that space, we can achieve that. And similarly for the launch capability at overback test range, we'll need some level of partnership for us to achieve a competitive launch capability. The formalization of partnership with CSR, that is concluded. We are already working with CSIR so that we can benefit from the work, R&D work that CSR does, and we can take some of the technologies coming out of CSIR, integrate them into systems to modernize our products or our solutions. And we have already the structure that we are working on to ensure that at the end, we have followed a process that is auditable. Because the problem is the question will be, how did you identify a partner? So we have that already covered, that we should be able to do it fairly and transparently and openly. And so we are engaging with IDC already especially on dual use solutions. So hopefully we'll have something coming out during this financial year between our discussions with IDC. This is our performance management, which we call the shareholder compact. The key performance areas are listed on the far left. At the top of it is support to SNDF. And we have identified the legacy programs as the start point. Because Denel is not profitable currently, one of the reasons is there are historical programs that were stopped some years ago, so we have reactivated them because the Defence Force...
Thank you, member. The next speaker is the Honorable Chirwa Ngoshe.
Honorable member. Who are speaking now? Okay, CEO, you can proceed as we summarize. Because we still have
thank you, Chair.
Right.
Yeah, Chair, this compact is it's addressing both how we respond to the mandate of Denel. Are we executing the mandate? Secondly, are we running Denel as a commercially viable entity? Are we doing good to the country? So this compact or this contract covers these areas that says, is Denel good for the country? Is Denel not going to be a burden to the country? And this performance against these targets are going to be measured on monthly basis and quarterly basis. We have identified some risks, and I'm not going through them already. I think I've covered them in the presentation. Liquidity is one of those aging infrastructure that we have to ensure that we modernize. And internal controls. We are already working on internal controls to improve. They were non-existent a few years ago. That's why Auditor General was saying they're unable to express an opinion on Denel because of the environment that they had to audit. And as a result, AG would serve us with a disclaimer opinion. That is being strengthened. We are strengthening this area, and we are going to continue in this financial year. And the other one that risk that we have identified is failure to conclude partnerships, because partnerships are at the heart of our success, because we don't have the strong balance sheet. So we need to conclude some of these partnerships so that we can get Denel to sustainable growth, so that we don't have to go back to the coffers and ask for recap. And these are the associates, Chair and honorable members. I thought I should just mention that we have Rheinmetall Denel Munitions where we own 49%. This associate company is doing very, very well in terms of its performance, in terms of its contribution to the country, in terms of job creation, and also its contribution to Denel in terms of dividends. The other two entities, we still have to evaluate how they are contributing to Denel, how they are contributing to the country. Chair, if I can allow my colleague to quickly take us through the finances to take a few minutes. Thank you, Chair. Mr. Ndeka.
Colleague, let's save time.
Just briefly, in terms of the performance in the next corporate plan, the numbers in front of you really reflect a business that is quite conservative in the first year on delivery on its corporate plan. That is based on a revenue of 1.9 billion, covered by a less risky order book. The Denel is quite cognizant of the efficiency issues coming from the liquidity constraints of working capital. So we tabled a corporate plan that is quite conservative in that area. We then expect growth in the second and third year, where in the third year, we're showing revenue of 3.6 billion, which is a 27% increase from the forecast of this year. In terms of operating loss, we still deliver on operating losses in year one. That is driven by the operating costs in the 26-27 year as a result of reorganizing the fixed cost structure to align with the current business requirements. So looking at the ensuring the business as well as the salary bill that supports the delivery of the revenue that is being tabled. We then expect that those once-off costs in 26-27 will then be eliminated, and any increase in 27-28 is driven by the increase in revenue, such that in 27-28 we are breaking even, and in 28-29 providing a profit. We also then see in the corporate plan the investment in associates coming through, performing quite well as per their projections in the first year, and increasing to 1.2 billion in the third year of 28-29, such that the net profit for year one for Denel would be 442, increasing to 1.1 billion in year three. In the next slide, just briefly on the balance sheet. We see an overall increase in total assets of 15%, driven by the investment in associates. And then we see that we remain solvent in the 3 years of the corporate plan. And in the short term, there may be constraints regarding working capital coming through from heavy reliance on inventories for legacy programs like Ufesta and the Kamas contract. Moving on to the next slide. The cash generated from operations remain negative throughout, as liquidity levels are expected to remain low after the recap that has been received. We also budget for dividends from Rheinmetall, which is showing good performance over the 3 years. But however, our key focus is financing these negative cash flows in the next 3 years. Overall, that is really the summary of the financial performance in the corporate plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much for the presentations. The presentation is well appreciated. You would recall, CEO, when we first met, there were no annual reports, no finances for 4 years, no corporate plan. But at least now, things are starting to shape up. It's well appreciated. I must say thanks also to the leadership of the executive for pushing very hard for us to comply with the requirements. I would request that we take hands from honorable members on the report of Denel. Today, I would request that we save time because we have 2 reports and the meeting is streamlined until 5 o'clock. So we have to end the business of the day at that time. I see the hand of Honorable Niaus, Honorable Hatten, Honorable Munyai, in that order.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And let me thank Denel for the presentation that they've given us. You were quite complimentary of what this presentation is saying, Chair. And I'm afraid that I'm not going to be as complimentary as you were. I think it's time to be quite blunt that Denel's turnaround remains incomplete and financially fragile. And despite the 5.2 billion 2023 turnaround package, the entity continues to suffer chronic operating losses, catastrophic revenue shortfalls, and liquidity constraints. The recapitalization has functioned primarily as a balance sheet and liquidity rescue rather than in industrial renewal. So there are key evidences of ongoing financial distress, and I'm just going to highlight them, Chair, because you asked us to try and save time. There are the continuing operation losses, and the core operations remain deeply loss-making, and the reported results are propped up by non-operational income, interest on recap funds, DMBT unbundling, and associate company dividends. Their revenue collapse versus the plans every year has seen a massive underperformance. I'm not going to go into the details of those underperformances, but they are there. And if we look at what has happened, the gross profit has in fact halved. There is recapitalization misuse. By the 28th of January 2026, 4.214 billion was utilized to current and legacy obligations. That means they were busy with stabilization and debt servicing, and the growth phase allocation was only 139 million used against a 900 million planned. There's no funding used for critical capex or for further optimization. The Department of Defense's decision to halt non-core asset sales created a funding deficit, forcing operating losses to cannibalize the remaining recapitalization funds. Liquidity and the balance sheet remains fragile. There is a governance credibility crisis that is continuing in Denel. There are still Vizondo findings that have not been properly acted on. There are the repeated AGSA concerns. There are delayed annual reports, although as you indicated, there's an improvement there. And leadership instability and poor program execution continue to undermine investor and partner confidence. So, Chair, these are some of the major problems and threats for the continuing existence of Denel, important as it is, as a critical asset of the state. There are some areas where there have been some improvement, and we saw that when we visited the aerospace division of Denel, but the reality is that it is operating in a context of continuing financial mismanagement and crisis. And unfortunately, one swallow will not make the summer. So, Chair, let me ask the few questions that I wanted to ask and then wind up. The first question I wanted to ask, what are the primary drivers of Denel's persistent operating losses, despite the so-called turnaround plan? And why has core revenue consistently fallen dramatically short of projections every year? Given that over 80% of the 4.214 billion utilized for the 3.4 billion recapitalization went to legacy obligations. So it was used to deal with the past and the burdens of the past rather than growth. What is the revised pathway and realistic timeline to achieve real sustainable operating profitability without further taxpayer support? Because I really don't think more money should be plowed in under these circumstances. Who made the strategic decision to stop the sale of non-core assets, and when was National Treasury consulted? And how exactly does Denel now intend to close the resulting funding deficit for the growth phase? How have recapitalization funds been allocated between legacy obligations, working capital, restructuring, and genuine growth investments? And why has so little of the planned 900 million growth allocation actually been utilized? What concrete governance reforms have been implemented in response to the Zondo Commission findings? Chair, I refer to some of those findings when we had our previous, not the last, the previous visit to the Denel offices in Pretoria. And while there was all kinds of general remarks and even some consternation when I raised those questions, I haven't yet seen what concrete governance reform and accountability have been implemented. Then there's also the AGSA qualifications and repeated parliamentary concerns. And what measurable improvements in internal controls and program execution have resulted? I'm almost through, Chair. I have two more questions to ask. What are Denel's key medium-term financial and operational risks, particularly around liquidity, performance guarantees, and the aging skill force? And how does Denel define its long-term industrial role as a broad spectrum sovereign OEM MRO for the South African National Defence Force as a more focused, partnership-driven player in a world shifting to autonomous systems, network-centric warfare, and software-defined capabilities? And lastly, what is Denel's concrete strategy and evidence of firm orders for aligning with global technological shifts and for building credible international joint ventures and PPPs? Those are the questions that I wanted to ask. I've tried to cut through some of them. And lastly, I want to say that in previous engagements that the Portfolio Committee of Defence had with Denel, and also in our recent oversight visits to Denel, we've consistently highlighted that incremental divisional wins alongside group-wide financial fragility, bailout dependency, and slow delivery is not going to cut the mustard. The pattern is unfortunately unmistakable. Billions in recapitalization have bought time, but there's not the fundamental transformation that was required. And our committee, in the light of this situation, will have to shift from monitoring to really decisive conditional oversight. We will have to demand that there's regular reports to us, that we get proper oversight, insight in what is happening in Denel, not the kind of generalizations that we received in this particular PowerPoint presentation. I conclude by saying, Chair, that 3/4 of this PowerPoint presentation that we received today, I've heard at least 3 times over before. It is time for Denel to concentrate on the core issues and to stop telling us about the generalities which they've shared with us time after time. Without these interventions, Denel risks remaining a perpetual fiscal drain rather than a strategic national asset. And it is critical that this situation must change. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Honorable Latte.
Thank you, Chairperson. Also, thank you to Denel, Mr. Monaing, for doing the presentation. Chair, yeah, and I see the dreaded word bailout has still again made its appearance in this presentation. In the past, it was camouflaged as recapitalization. So let's just look what we have on the table today. We have a promise of a positive cash balance, strong revenue growth, turnover growing into 5 years at 5 billion, and improved margins. But if we look what happened in the past, the actual operating losses, our research shows that in 2024 it was 647 million, 2025 514 million, 2026 forecasted at 601 million, and yet we have throughout Denel presenting a future profitability, and what we see at Parliament level is operating losses all the time. So profitability has been forecast before. It's not, the issue is not whether Denel can produce such a projection. It is whether Denel can finally produce delivery, and that we haven't seen. So we have seen repeated strong revenue growth presentations, improved profitability, and yet actual revenue operating performance continue to fall materially below plan. So why should we now regard this corporate plan, the 2026-2027 projections, as credible, while the previous corporate plans produce the same promises but not the results that was forecasted? So the question then, at what point will this committee be taken seriously and not receive the repeated profit forecast, and then at the end it's becoming a liability, a loss? Chair, and I think Denel has got the formula right. They have it right in RDM. It's a success story, and it works because of the global ammunition demand. It's extra export-driven revenue. It's got a strong strategic foreign partner, Rheinmetall. It's got access to capital and guarantees. There's a strong discipline in RDM, and it is not as exposed to Denel internal governance failures. And it works because RDM operates as a commercial business in a competitive market with discipline. We have also the success, and we've seen it, witnessed it firsthand when we were there in Denel Aerospace. It's obviously Denel strategically strongest internal division, and it grows. And it works because it provides South Africa a capability, and the SANDF capability that we cannot afford to lose, but it works. We have dynamics. It works because of the export potential and sovereign missile capability that we have, and high-value specialized products. But there is also constraints, so we're moving down the line because of guarantees and liquidity. And on the other end of the scale, what does not work? PMP doesn't work because it's heavily dependent on let's call it bailouts, but it's phrased as recapitalization, which doesn't really happen. And the money that goes there goes into survival, not to restore its competitiveness and to get competitive in the international market, arms market. It doesn't. I don't even want to go to Landwehr, to Hoefyster, and to those failures. But so Denel has the formula. It knows exactly what works. It knows exactly what doesn't work. And still we sit with the same situation year after year. So some portions of Denel work where partnership is solid, where there's capital, where there's export markets, and there's discipline. And where it fails, you can go throughout, is where there's state dependence, very weak domestic demand, weak execution, and poor control. So Denel's strongest businesses act and behave like commercial defense companies, and its weakest businesses are actually act like protected state liabilities. This is the real divide. So if Denel knows all of this, and they spent hours and hours in boardrooms on this, why doesn't the formula, the RDM formula, not apply to others? Why does it keep eating money all the time, year after year? Then, Chair, RDM is mentioned many, many times. But there's also the other part, one of the other partnerships, the Bahrain-Altarik partnership. What I think we need to get some clarity on that. Denel still holds 49% in Bahrain Dynamics or Altarik, but the corporate plan provides no detail on its financial contribution. What's the current value of that stake? What dividends or revenue has flowed back into Denel? And how does that compare to the IP and sovereign capability originally transferred into that partnership? Or the real question, actually, blunt, is this partnership, a model of value creation, or is this a case study in exporting South African capability and IP without sufficient return? We need to get behind this, Chair. Then, finally, no, Chair, I will conclude with that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Munyai. Honorable Munyai. Chili Zimunyai.
Akekho.
Oh, Pumlani.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Honorable Chair and honorable members, or Deputy Minister, and the defense industry, Armscor and Denel. Chairperson, you know, at this point, I just want to be frank, Chairperson, because what we are doing is, you know, it's not really an oversight now. We sit here, you know, meeting after meeting, receiving these presentations that look exactly the same as the ones we received before. The same problems, same promises, same turnaround plans, but no evidence that anything raised by this committee has been implemented. We are not seeing progress, accountability, consequences, or urgency. Chairperson, this committee cannot really continue to operate in a cycle where entities repeat themselves and the department simply nods along. Our oversight is not a ritual. You know, it is a constitutional obligation. And right now, you know, they are not giving us the tools to fulfill it. That is why I want to fully support what you had proposed in one of the engagements that we had as the committee, where, Chairperson, you proposed that we must have a multi-stakeholder intervention, sort of an imbizo, where all the role players are brought into one room. The ministry, Armscor, Denel, SANDF, Treasury, and the defense industry partners. Because the minister owes this committee a clear and direct explanation. Why is Denel being treated as a stepchild by her office? Denel is the OEM and MRO for the majority of the SANDF's critical systems. Yet, it looks like it's being sidelined, underfunded. You know, I know all the other challenges that Denel has had, but if we really are talking about changing things, turning things around, you know, yet we are propelling a maturing national security risk. I mean, we are not doing ourselves any favor. So today, Chairperson, I want us to move, you know, beyond just a polite engagement. We need answers, commitments, and we need a clear plan for this imbizo that will finally force alignment across the defense ecosystem, because what we are doing is really not oversight, it is observation, and observation will not save the SANDF. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honorable Munyai. Are you there? All right, I see Honorable Munyai is not in the platform. Can we
sorry, Chairperson, sorry, man, my mic was not opening.
Okay.
You have been calling me, I could hear you, my sincere apology.
All
and
right.
ultimately I was kicked up. Please accept my apology. Can I please proceed?
Yes, you can proceed as Denel prepares itself. We'll just have short answers. The rest of the answers will have to be given through a proper plan. Over to you, Honorable Munyai.
I thank you very much, esteemed Honorable Chairperson, esteemed Honorable Deputy Ministers, Honorable members, and both leadership of the two entities, starting with Denel, that just presented. Honorable Chairperson, I'm sure we're doing our work in the context of the doctrine of separation of power. And our work as the members of parliament is guided by the oversight sector model, which enable us and the constitution to be able to conduct oversight over the executive. With respect to the presentation, allow me, Chairperson, to say that I'm very optimistic and strongly have a confidence in the Denel long-term viability in all those areas of specific areas of their core functions. Because I'm saying this issue, Honorable Chairperson, because it is important that as leadership, we have a strategic foresight, at least to see beyond the Table Bay Mountain and to see beyond the walls. We have no doubt, and when I'm saying we, I'm referring myself, Chairperson, I have no doubt that the new board will accelerate the turnaround strategy to restore confidence, both to the defense industry, stakeholders in general, and I'm sure they will move forward with strong viability and turn around this organization. The key issue, therefore, Honorable Chair, the key challenges, as you may be aware, could be issues of the resources, which are not endless, of which appropriation and also get to happen through the division of revenue, through arising from finance or the treasury, which these entities are not receiving sufficiently. I must say, Chairperson, while we welcome the Denel new generation of engineering youth that they bring through the National Skill Program, the issue of the skill retention in this environment is very critical, Honorable Chairperson. And I know the challenges could also be some are retiring due to getting age and so forth and so on. It is very imperative that more resources are found and we mobilize such to support Denel to achieve this cooperative plan that they presented before us. We have seen through finances that really there is the balance sheet. It's going to be okay. They need to be supported. But one thing that I think I need to raise as a strategic issues that may require our honorable minister and the deputy ministers to look at it going forward. It is an issue of the reviewing all this strategic partnership. Because if the strategic partnership does not give us seamless transition for Denel to become, in long term, to generate enough revenue to sustain themselves going forward. It can be a challenge, but it's important to be able to assess the performance of this strategic leadership that we have with the German military companies that has we partnered with Denel, from Armscor to other, and so on and so forth. So that is the areas to trying to speak particularly on strengthening their aeronautics division and also the other areas of their core performance. Internal control is an issue that I'm sure that the management will be able to strengthen as we look at rebuilding its capabilities and to protect its IP, and really agree that you as the organization, as you outlined, it's an organization that require a strong strategic partnership. But once we move forward to strengthen that partnership, let's also review the one we have. If it doesn't yield the mutual benefit and doesn't strengthen your capabilities to overall support our defense environment, and it will not be able to assist. So those are the issues that I could raise. But after all, Honorable Chairperson, I have a sense of hope, and I think what they presented here is a very good presentation, and it deserves to be supported by honorable members, because to be critical is important as part of oversight. But at the end of the day, we need to approve this budget through your guidance and this APP strategic annual performance plan, such that we can move forward for the year 2026-2027. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. I have only 5 minutes before I allow Armscor to come in.
Chair, have you disappeared? I can't hear you.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Now we can hear you again. Thank you, Chair.
All right. I was saying that Denel can answer. I'll give them 5 minutes because I need to go to Armscor. Then where we can't answer today, we can make written responses so that we we can improve our work. I hear what members are saying. I still would like that we get a session with Denel on other issues that you are raising, because they are very key and critical. And unfortunately, when you play oversight, it's not only oversight in terms of corporate plans and annual plans, it's oversight in terms of national security. In case the country is attacked any time from now, we must be able to can respond. And some of the presentations we are getting are not giving us a sense that in case we are attacked in the next 2 hours, will we be able to respond as a nation or what? Because that is the work of this particular defense company, as well as our work as the Portfolio Committee of Defense, national security. Other things are, by the way, issue, because state exists for 3 reasons. It can lose legitimacy if it failed to feed its people, if it failed to develop its people, and if it fails to defend its people. The rest is academic. Let me hand over to you, Denel.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be quick in responding, and I think I'll try and put most of the similar questions under one so that I can respond quickly. The first question was related to operating losses, which I agree 100%, that the operating losses are the problem for performance of Denel. And 3 years ago, operating losses were sitting at 115% of revenue. And this last financial year, we dropped the operating losses to 55% of revenue. And we are aiming to move the operating expenses to 30% of revenue. And if we get to 30% of revenue, it becomes very easy to achieve operating profit. And we continue to do that whilst we are moving the revenue upwards. We have concluded quite a number of contracts to date, and we are working on other opportunities which are real and in excess of 90% probability of success. So moving revenue upwards and ensuring that our operating profit, our operating losses, expenses are reduced, we are going to be profitable. And we are moving in the right direction from 115% OPEX to 55%. We're moving towards 30%. And the other part, which is the execution of legacy contracts. We have these contracts that we had for many, many years. And we cannot say we are going to review the contracts and ask for adjustments. We have to execute them and finish them. Unfortunately, they come at a cost. In some cases, it's penalties. In some cases, it's onerous provisions that we have to live with. But we have to deliver on these programs so that we can regain confidence and our reputation back as a company. The other question is the revenue that is behind. It's purely because of we have the contracts. It's purely because of working capital that stifles us in terms of, because we have to have first put in money, execute, invoice, get money. So if we don't have that first part, that's why we have to strengthen our balance sheet so that we have our own money in the bank. And the other question was, it's related to governance reforms. The stability of leadership is critical for governance reform. And to that we are achieving, and strengthening of the internal controls that we are doing at all fronts. We have a project that we are running to ensure that our internal controls are optimal, which were non-existent before. But at least now we can talk about existence of internal controls. We just have to make sure that they are fully improved. And then the question about the recap as well, I think it was, it's the funding that was allocated. Denel requested 5.4 and Denel received 3.4, and 2.7 billion of 3.4 billion was utilized to address legacy problems. The problem is if Denel didn't address the legacy problems, would not be able to move forward because those problems will not go away. So Denel had to address those obligations. And the remainder then was not enough to spread it across because we couldn't sell the non-core assets to raise the other 900 million to R1 billion. So we are financing some of the legacy debt from the operations. That's why we are constrained in terms of cash. But the sooner we finish with this legacy obligations and we are done with them, Denel will be run as a normal business. But until we complete that project, we'll fight on a daily basis. I think the other question was around strategies for order intake. We have the strategies of order intake, getting orders. They are multi-pronged. One is we market, we go out there to the market and sell. Fortunately, Denel products, they are still regarded well internationally. We just have to go out there. We go out there, we convince the customers that Denel is now operating normally, and we are not going to repeat what happened. And the customers are responding positively. And the other element is the government to government, because most of the countries want to contract within the government to government relationship. And we have very big support from the minister in supporting us, from deputy minister from supporting us on the international market, because it means if the customers see that the country supports Denel, then it's easy for us to get the contracts. Ours is to focus on operations, ensure that when we sign contracts, we deliver on them. So we are working on that now. All the new contracts that we have contracted on, we are delivering, and the customers are happy. The legacy ones, we are moving along until we complete them. We will not get out of having to explain to the customers that we did wrong 5 years ago, 4 years ago. And Chair, the other one is the other question was around it's around why is Denel not implementing the RDM model in other businesses? That's what we are looking at. I think it took a bit longer. It may not be at equity level, but we are looking at strategic partnerships for the different areas of the business. For PMP, we are looking at strategic partnerships because we don't have the balance sheet. Gear ratio, we are looking at strategic partnership. Space, we are looking at strategic partnership. And we have already started working on that. And unfortunately, some of the partnerships are not working as expected, as we had planned, like RDM is working. But Ridge, we maybe will have to review our 49%, because if it's not creating value, then it's a problem. And then the Hensoldt as well, we have to really look at Hensoldt, because if it's not helping Denel in terms of creation of value, so why can't it contribute? If not contributing, then let's revisit the relationship. And Chair, the other question was around R&D and products modernization, so that we have competitive products. Because Defence Force has to have the latest of products. For instance, we're talking about, if we talk about missiles, Defence Force will need missiles that are going to deter anybody that wants to approach South Africa. But if we have a 20-kilometer missile, it's too far. It's too far away from the enemy. So we have to get into this innovation and advancement, so that we can move agility, we can move range, so that the enemy can be dealt with from far, as an example. And smart technologies in drones and sensors that we are working on to because we don't have the funding to do that at the moment, we are going into partnerships with those companies that already have the technology so that we can fast track our recovery. And the other, I think I've exhausted the questions, Chair.
No problems. CEO, I think on your own, as the Denel, you'll find time to get questions from members and to give us written responses. But at the same time, go and work on issues that members raised so that we can improve our corporate plan and our annual performance plan. I'm happy that you are considering partnerships. I'm sure they will want your annual reports, your finances, including your turnaround strategy and your corporate plan. But key amongst things that are needed is the board decisions on partnership, board policy formulation on triple Ps, the concurrence of National Treasury on triple Ps. We don't want it to be presented here only to find out that it does not comply with other corporate requirements. So I think we'll have to work on that. I would not want to discuss too much, but hand over again to the member of the executive, Deputy Minister, to introduce the next item of the board to us before we allow Armscor to come in.
Chair, before you go there, can you see my hand, please? It will be very short. I don't want to delay us.
Please. Okay.
Yes, Chair, I'm not really impressed with the responses that we've received. I'm also not impressed with the manner in which we do these meetings with these entities. I've complained about this in the past. What we are doing is we create.
We have lost you.
Chair, I can no longer hear Honorable Member Nihas.
Yes, that's what I was saying. We have lost him. Honorable Nihas?
About how we do these particular meetings simply for the sake of having a deadline to rush towards the budget vote debate of the Department of Defense and military veterans and the entities related to it. This is highly unsatisfactory. And I really feel that we are not doing justice to ourselves nor to these entities that we have to engage with. Today's meeting with Denel is for me a very unsatisfactory engagement, and the responses that were rushed now in the response to our questions were highly unsatisfying. So please, Chair, we need to get a different way of doing these things.
Can you bring a
Thank you.
proposal then?
Chairperson, I raise
We'll
my hand.
discuss a proposal, Chair, and there have been proposals made also by some of my colleagues, specifically the honourable member from the MK party, and we should discuss that in-house. I don't think this is the time to do so because that will take time itself. But I think for now we must register that the manner in which these things are being handled at the moment, rushing towards the budget vote debate, is unsatisfactory and does not serve the purpose of oversight for us as members of Parliament. Thank you.
Okay. Thank
Chair,
you, Honorable.
Yeah. Honorable Chair, I will propose that because this strategic state-owned company are a bit sensitive because they are defense in their nature, I will propose that beyond this disaster that has happened that made it practically impossible to meet fiscally, I will appreciate that when we meet in the future, it have to be fiscal meeting. You can't discuss the strategic defense. We can't discuss the strategic defense issues of our country or sensitive issues That's why some of us were not asking questions. That have to happen in a closed doors. So therefore, the meeting for these entities have to be fiscal and in closed doors so that some of us, we can express deep issues rather than being online. I thank you, Chair. The proposal.
Okay, no problem. Can the Secretariat record it that we conclude that we'll have to have another session beyond the adoption of the budget vote next week?
Chair, my apology to come in again, but yes, while I agree that we need to have a further meeting with Denel and we need to have an intense understanding of what Denel is doing, I do not want it to go unchallenged that these meetings need to be behind closed doors. I repeat again what we in the economic freedom fighters have said several times, that closed meetings can only be for very exceptional circumstances. We have to do our work as members of parliament in public, seen to be done in public and accountable. So while the proposal for further meetings with Denel is certainly supported by the economic freedom fighters, a generalized statement about closed meetings behind closed doors, so to speak, as the chief, the whip of our committee, I repeat again, the unelected whip of our committee has said, we certainly, as the economic freedom fighters, will not support. But let's talk about that in-house as part of our organizational housekeeping. But certainly we need to get Denel back in front of us, and we need to get an opportunity to have a far more in-depth discussion with him. Today's was not satisfactory. I repeat that again.
No, thank you very much. I think let's...
Honorable Chair, I have my hand up.
Yeah, but I don't want a dialogue, honorable members.
No, it's not a dialogue, Chair. It's something else.
Yeah, please. Yes.
No, I wanted to put it on record. The proposed meeting I'm proposing is not about the APP and the budget. It's a meeting that will be able to address the business of the organization. But also, Chair, I will also appeal that the report of the oversight should be separate and should be done also again in a fiscal meeting. That is my proposal. The issue, Honorable Chair, that I also want to appeal, we must appeal for decorum in this house, because if we try to ridicule each other, the decorum will be lowered and grounded to ground zero. And some of us were capable of managing issues differently within the framework of the legislative oversight. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much.
Order, Chair.
I don't want... who's
Order,
speaking?
Chair. Allah is my name.
Okay, Honorable Allah.
Thanks, Chair. Chair, could we please attend to the business of the day only? The problems that we have as a committee have their own space in-house. So let us not go there. Let's discuss the program of the day. Full stop. Thank you.
Yes, you are correct, Honorable Hala. Let's go back to the business of the day. Other issues, I think we'll deal with them on our own. Today's meeting had to be virtual based on the weather conditions in Cape Town. And there was a directive from the Chair of Chairs' office that all our meetings for today be virtual because they could not guarantee the climate adaptation. So that's why we had to meet in this way. But I think we appreciate the contribution and the submission by Denel on issues that members has raised. We will have to work on them so that we improve. But I think the issue of the meeting between ourselves and the industry, it was agreed by us as a joint standing committee with the minister and the NCACC at the JSCD meeting that we need an indaba of the industry together with the department and the NCACC to check the status of the safety of the nation. So that particular matter will be dealt with at that particular meeting, where we are still awaiting the executive to give us the date of the hosting of that particular event of the indab of the industry to deal with the status of defense and national security in our country. So I think that one will be dealt at that particular point. So the other matter related to us discussing how to strengthen our defense companies, which are state-owned, I think we need that lekgotla, because I also have my own input that I would like to make, because I'm of the view that SAA, Denel, and Armscor, we can't continue making them to account under PFMA whilst they have to compete commercially with other companies. We can allow them to be state-owned companies, but I'll allow them the leverage. But that model, I'll raise it at the Lekgotla in terms of what I have in my opinion, but the committee will have the final right to decide what direction should we take. Can we allow the member of the executive to introduce members of the board? Let me hand over to the general. Over to you, Honorable Lawler.
Thank you, Chairperson, honorable members, board members of Denel and Armscor, senior officials. I'm not going to be saying much in introducing Armscor. They will just follow immediately. I've finished my comment. I wish to respond to Denel and Denel's problems as well as Armscor. As we conclude one fundamental issue, we must not lose sight of is the historical context within which Armscor and Denel were established. These institutions were created to sustain the military capability of the then SADF during a period when the state heavily prioritized defense expenditure and strategic self-sufficiency. You will recall that even under international sanctions, government ensured that its military industrial complex remained funded and operational because it understood the strategic importance of a capable defense industry. Today, however, the SANDF operates under a very difficult and different funding model or reality. The SANDF is not funded on the same scale as the SADF of old, yet we continue to expect Armscor and Denel to maintain strategic capabilities, preserve critical skills, support force preparedness, and of course, compete globally under constrained fiscal conditions. So a capable defense force cannot exist without a viable defense industry. And equally, such an industry cannot survive without deliberate state support. So, in other words, honorable members, I'm hoping that when we go to the Indaba, we will be in a position to understand where we come from and what should we do. Because that space which was occupied by Denel and Armscor before 1994. Today, you have other global players who are competing with us inside South Africa. I'm not suggesting that we should chase them away, but we must find a strategy of how do we maneuver within this industry. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable DM. CEO, who are your board members who are present here today?
Chair, my chairperson of the board is in the meeting, and I think she'll be able to introduce the board.
Okay. Chair of the board.
Thank you.
Chair
Good.
All right. Over to you.
Good afternoon, Chair. I must say we are very much honored to have been invited in this meeting, and we took all the questions and discussions, and also the Deputy Minister's remarks very carefully, and they enable us as a new board to really have a clear direction. My name is Tsidi Mokhabude. I'm the interim board chairperson, and with us, who have all joined actually, is Rita Lisinyeho, who is the chair of Audit and Risk, Ms. Hani Mamabulo, who is a member of HR committee, Ms. Fumelani Mbulayeni, who is a member of a new formed operations committee. As you hear the discussions today, is that the program execution is one big risk that we have. So we have formed a new committee of the board to focus on that. We have Tando Mutlabani, who is a member of a Human Resource Committee. We have retired Lieutenant General Justice Nkonyane, who is the chairman of the newly formed operations subcommittee of the board. We have Mr. Mgolisi Zwane Wakamlam Sambo, who is a member of the HR committee. We have Dr. Edna Harter, who is a member of the HR committee. We have Ms. Louise Specht, who is the chairman of the HR committee. And then we also then have the executive directors who are with us here. I must say that it's the first time we have a full committee of, I think we are 10 non-executive and 2 executives. Denel, in the recent past, has operated with a non-optimal board, where the board was 5 members. I must also add that the skill and experience of the newly formulated board, it includes the right required skills for for Denel, engineers in the board, program management expertise in the board, financial expertise in the board, military expertise in the board, and of course the legal expertise. Thank you very much, Chair.
No, thank you very much, Chairperson of the board. We must welcome you from our side as the portfolio committee. We hope that your cooperation together with the executive and the team will help us to yield the results and have a turnaround of the company to the benefit of the nation and, of course, to our national security, as mentioned by Honorable Deputy Minister. Well, thank you very much. You can remain in the meeting. We are now going to engage Armscor so that you can make your notes in terms of how we run the business of the Portfolio Committee and what are our expectations in terms of your key performance areas as our companies. At least Armscor, we've been with them for a longer time. You learn in terms of how we run the business of the committee. Let me hand over to Armscor. You can switch off your camera, Chairperson. Thank you very much, and you are welcome. You can remain in the meeting together with the team. Armscor.
Thank you very much, Chair. Is the chair of Armscor board. I think the committee have seen board members. We are trying to limit the number because we thought we are coming to Cape Town so that we manage our finances, because already the board has approved what you call the strategy, corporate plan. So is the chair available only today with the officials that are going to present, and also acknowledge the leadership of the Deputy Minister, General Holomesa, for leading us into what you call this process. We will hand over to the CEO, but we wanted to the committee to be rest assured that the board has approved the corporate plan on what they are going to present it. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Over to you, CEO.
Good afternoon, Chair, members of the committee, Deputy Minister, colleagues and board members from Denel and colleagues from Denel, as well as the TOD Chair. Chair, we are quite happy to table our annual plan. The presenters, Chair, will be Ms. Neonikas, who's our head of planning, and followed by the CFO in that order. Thank you, Chair.
Can we share the presentation?
Good afternoon, Honourable Chairperson, Honourable Members, Deputy Ministers, and all protocol observed. Just would like to confirm, can you see the presentation?
Yes.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. Our Armscor Corporate Plan 2026 will focus on 4 parts. Part A being our mandate, Part B being the strategic focus, Part C being the measurement of Armscor's performance, and the last part is mainly focusing on Armscor's way forward. When we look at the Armscor Corporate Plan 2026, together with the Department of Defence, we tabled it on the 25th of March 2026. And our plan mainly highlights our mandate, our strategic priorities and performance framework for the 26-27 financial year. And it's also aligned to government initiatives, mainly your National Development Plan, Vision 2030, the Medium-Term Development Plan for the period being 2024 to 2029, as well as the Key Policy of Defence, the South African Defence Review 2015. The plan emphasizes on the modernization, sustainability, innovation and governance in supporting the SANDF and also strengthening the South African defence industry. When we look at our mandate, that being the Armscor Act number 51 of 2003, we have structured our Armscor facilities in South Africa, mainly in Pretoria, Durban, Cape Town and the Northern Cape. So this mandate illustrates our must functions as well as our may functions and how it relates to our vision, mission, and values. Looking at acquisition, they follow the through life cycle, so the expertise in complex acquisition and the management of acquisition is a key enabler in the service delivery, especially to our Department of Defense, other clients, and other government departments. We're the only acquisition agency on the African continent. When we look at our strategic facilities, specifically in the research and development environment, we look firstly at our ProTechnique environment. They specialize in defense, chemical, and biological research on behalf of the South African National Defense Force. Our ErgoTech environment looks at providing economic solutions to optimize human performance, reduce work-related risks, and improve overall safety, productivity, both locally and internationally. When looking at our hazmat environment, they mainly focus on supplying respiratory filtering masks for the protection against a majority of respiratory health hazards. These are all situated in Technopark Centurion, Pretoria. Our other strategic facilities includes Gerotix. It's a testing facility that looks at the military vehicles, testing of military vehicles, as well as commercial vehicles. Our Alkanpan test range, they focus on ballistic testing for medium to large caliber weapons and ammunition. When we look at our IMT environment, the Institute of Maritime Technology, they mainly focus on maritime research, and they situated in the Western Cape. Alkampan is situated in the Northern Cape, and Gerotech in Pretoria on the western side. When we look at the other strategic facilities in terms of research and development, specifically looking at your intellectual property, they handle the management of intellectual property. Those are the services that they render in terms of providing the support to the Department of Defense. Temani mainly is an independent, centralized coordination and management role that they fulfill in terms of technology acquisition and technology commercialization. Our Defense Decision Support Institute provides decision support to the Department of Defense. Flamingo, they provide computer-based simulation and failure analysis support. And finally, the last research and development facility looks at armor development, which basically does the research and development of passive and reactive armor systems for the South African Defence Review or South African National Defence Force. Now, when we look at our dockyard, the strategic facility, which is situated in Simonstown Dockyard, or in the Simonstown in the Western Cape, their mandate is split in two categories. Your first category looks at the primary mandate being the support services to the SA Navy, specifically on the third line and fourth line maintenance. The second mandate of the dockyard mainly looks at providing third-party services to our government departments, the private sector, and any other client. The other services that we also provide is Armscor Logistics, and that's divided into two categories, mainly your freight side, and the other category looks at the travel management, which we provide for Armscor, the Minister of Defense, the Department of Defense, defense industry, commercial clients, not only locally, but also globally. Our strategic focus looks at, firstly, our situational analysis. That is then introduced through the PEST LIM, which is your political, economic, social, technology, legal, environmental, and military. And this is developed in conjunction with the Department of Defense as well as Defense Intelligence. That then informs our strategic direction as a public entity. From the situational analysis, determining our strategic direction, we then categorize certain strategic priorities for the next financial year. Firstly, we looked at capability modernization for the Department of Defense. We've also looked at research and development as an innovation hub for the Department of Defense. We've also looked at strengthening our international partnerships, one in particular being the South Korea's Defense Acquisition Program Administration, which is a 5-year agreement that seeks to enhance cooperation in the defense industry and in defense research and development. So international partnerships are key, as well as the industry support. So we will pursue strategic partnerships, and we will also ensure that there's mutually beneficial relationships that support the growth, development, and global competitiveness of our South African defense industry. When looking at the governance and oversight, this is key for Armscor because we would like to ensure that we uphold governance in all our decision-making and operations which takes place within Armscor. In one particular key situation that Armscor has decided to introduce the war room, and the war room is key. It's one of our strategic objectives to measure performance in a much more transparent manner. We also looked at this launch that we will have a transparent, real-time war room that can provide us with performance information that is readily available and is transparent. We also introduced 7 board committees that looks at the oversight in terms of all the decisions that are taken, in terms of our tendering processes being the main tender board for the Department of Defense. Succession planning is also key. It looks at the business continuity, so we ensure that succession planning is part of our performance management process within the corporation. The national alignment is also key for the organization, and we ensure that we align to the National Development Plan, the Medium-Term Development Plan, as well as the peacekeeping missions, where we have to support the Department of Defense and also the global and regional stability. So all in all, that looks at ensuring that there's modernization, revenue growth, and defense industry support. The 7th administration introduced the medium-term development plan, and there was 3 priorities which they introduced. The first 2 priorities, strategic priority 1 and strategic priority 2, Armscor and the department will support these priorities indirectly, and the direct contribution will be in strategic priority 3, that being building a capable, ethical, and developmental state. We also support the Minister of Defence and Military Veterans in terms of her priorities, which was outlined for the financial year 26-27, as well as her performance agreement, which was concluded with the President of the RSA. So the plan outlines our support towards the executive authority in her priorities and the agreement. When looking at our Armscor's performance management, we looked at the results-based model, which was introduced by the Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation, how to determine our goals, our targets, and how to also align it to our mandate. When we look at the service level agreement that was concluded between the Department of Defense and Armscor, it was aligned directly to our mandate and also the value add of Armscor as a public entity towards the Department of Defense. The service level agreement, after being concluded, increased the targets from 21 to 45. So you can see there has been an increase in the targets, and it's mainly concentrating on 4 quadrants. Firstly, our executing functions, that being our acquisition domain, which looks at measuring time, the time taken to convert cash flow into projects, the delivery of projects, the maintenance, repair, and overall, as well as the project placement and execution. The second quadrant looks at our research and development, and that looks at measuring the contracts as well as the execution of contracts and the MOAs, which is your memorandum of agreement. It also looks at the commitment, the committing resources and research outputs. The third quadrant focuses on the dockyard, and that basically looks at measuring the time taken to convert cash flow into projects, the delivery of projects, and also the project's maintenance, execution of vessels. The last quadrant focuses on our governance side, so all the support functions on how we can ensure that governance and compliance is upheld throughout the process. We also provide quarterly and annual feedback to the Department of Defense in terms of our service level agreement. The next slide will basically illustrate in terms of the results-based model, specifically looking at our output 1, which talks directly to our mandate to meet the defense material and technology requirements of the DoD, organs of state and other entities, as well as management of strategic capabilities of the DoD. So that talks completely to all the executing functions, the acquisition and the through life cycle, as well as our research and development environment being your technology and maintenance, and then also your dockyard environment to ensure that the Department of Defense has operational readiness in terms of the execution of their projects. Now, when we go deeper into the service level agreement, specifically with the targets that have been set and also the fundamental changes in the SLA, the first category, the first 4 categories looks at your acquisition environment. So the first one looks at the contracts on the capital side of acquisition, as well as also looking at the in-year deliverables and the lag deliverables. The lag deliverables will mainly focus on all those deliverables that have been outstanding from the previous financial year will be measured in the current financial year. That is one of the changes in the SLA. The other one introduces the defense material acquisition matters to be tracked. Those are all the requirements that are coming from the arms of service and how we track them quarterly and on an annual basis. That's also another area that has been a change in the service level agreement. The second one looks at the support system acquisition procurement, which is being carried over from the previous SLA into the new SLA, as well as the schedule order placement. That has still remained the same. And also when we look at the fourth one, specifically the defense industrial participation, that has also been continued over from the previous service level agreement into the current service level agreement. The new one that has come in board is looking at your non-current assets relating to the acquisition and technology services, and that's basically looking at performing an annual stock, which is taken in terms of the DoD and project-related assets for the year. It also talks directly to our IP management of state assets. When we look at the next area being your number 6, which looks at your research and development environment, previously in the previous service level agreement, we measured the research and development as a collective. However, now in the new service level agreement, we're measuring each strategic facility separately. So that would be Gerotech would be measured separately, your hazmat would be measured separately, your IMT would be measured separately. So that's the fundamental change within the service level agreement. The 7th component in the service level agreement looks at your Armscor dockyard, and that's the performance agreement which has been concluded with the SA Navy. When we look at outcome 2, which focuses on our governance side, so in order to ensure that we achieve accountable and effective governance of Armscor Corporate, we do that throughout the life cycle, so we measure from cradle to grave and ensure that we uphold governance in the entire process. That is then the executing functions are then supported by our support functions, which is mainly your business enablement, your business assurance, your corporate services, your ICT and cybersecurity, and they ensure that we support all these functions to execute the tasks in time and on time. We also ensure that we measure our compliance and trade environment. When we look at the breakdown of those strategic outputs, Output 1 mainly looks at your service level agreement, and we've highlighted the pages where one can go into all the detail in terms of our quarterly reporting and annual reporting within the plan. It's specified there in the first output. Output 2 then looks at your managing Armscor effectively, and that looks at all the PFMA compliance documents, for example, the corporate plan, your annual report, your quarterly reporting, etc. We also look at the unqualified audit to ensure that we try to maintain our status of achieving an annual qualified audit by the AGSA. We also introduced the implementation of the service level agreement, where we report directly to the Department of Defense to provide them with an update on our service level agreement. Our output 3 focuses on the support functions and how they support the executing functions. And we also look at revenue generation as well as cost management and all the other support functions that are contained in output 3. Our output 4 mainly looks at the arms control and compliance services. When looking at Armscor as an entity, specifically our employment equity figures, we firstly look at our engineering domain. It's because we have many engineers and scientists. That is our core function as Armscor, to ensure that we've got competent and learned people. So that basically illustrates the qualifications in terms of the STEM subjects within Armscor. The middle diagram basically illustrates the black and white component, and the last one looks at your male and female within Armscor. We also invest in our people. We feel that the youth is the future for Armscor, so we have to ensure that we invest in our employees. The development of employees is key to Armscor. When looking at the development for the last financial year, we developed 47.26 employees. People living with disabilities, we developed 48.48%. And then in terms of women, we developed 49.25%. This also then talks to the Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation, who requested that each entity and national department must focus on the youth, focus on the appointment of women, and focus on people living with disabilities. So if we look at our talent development program, we've appointed 36 people, and 17 are newly qualified students who have been appointed from the 1st of April 2026. In terms of the bursary scheme, we've appointed 25 people to obtain their bursary, and 4 new intakes have been taken in as from 1 April 2026. When looking at corporate social investment, this is also key to Armscor in terms of the social investment projects that we identify. We've looked at 34 projects that were funded and mainly classified in 3 components, that being your social relief, your human capital development, and your social economic upliftment. Out of the 34 projects, 19 focused on social relief programs and 15 focused on our STEM programs. For any strategy to be successful, it lies in its implementation, and the key success factors is mainly our funding, that we ensure that we have sufficient funding, also effective information security, effective physical security, effective ICT systems, and also effective stakeholder engagement and revenue generation. We've also looked at reorganizing our supply chain as a core catalyst towards performance and customer satisfaction. I will now hand over to our CFO, Mr. Grobler, to take us through the financial overview.
Thank you. Afternoon, Chairperson, honorable members, deputy ministers, as well as all other members on the platform. I think in the first slide, we just repeat our sources of funding. You'll see that our biggest contributor is still the parliamentary allocation that we get, which is 63% of our total allocation of our revenue.
So if you then see that we still need to generate additional funding to cover the cost of the organization, and that we do through various ways. I mean, we do have rental income for the building that we rent to the DoD. We also have commercial income as well as investment income. The investment income is flowing from our capital, from our cash that we use for capital renewal as well as for operating capital. So that is the money that we do get. So you'll understand that we need to increase our commercial income as the transfer payment is reducing on an ongoing basis. So the revenue is not really increasing to the same extent as expenditure. Chair, if we move to the expenditure, I think it's already reflected. The employee cost is 68%. So if you see the transfer payment is not covering the employee cost, the cost of sales is 9%, and then the other expenditure is 23%. In there, it's all external services, which includes the building maintenance, security, water and electricity, subsistence and travel, training, and then other expenditure like insurance, corporate social investment, board fees, audit fees, that's forming part of the general expenditure. So for Armscor really to manage its cost, we must have a handle on our employee cost, as you can cut some of the other expenditure, but you will not make the organization survive through that. Chair, if you then look at our 3-year plan, it's basically a break-even plan over the 3 years. I must say that if you look at the income, our revenue is not really increasing to a high extent. That is already reflected. We also have more depreciation coming through now with all our renewal. I think we're going to expend a lot of capital in the current year as well as the future years. I think you've seen on our corporate plan, page 117, you've seen the tables there reflecting what are we going to do. We are maintaining our building, which is now 36 years old. So there's a lot of capital being invested in the building itself in terms of our aircon, carpets, emergency power, lifts, all of those things need to be renewed. And then also in terms of our facilities, there's a lot of money being spent on the renewal of tracks in Geratech, for example, as well as security upgrades in different areas. In terms of our other capital, we're also going to spend a lot on ICT this year. There's a lot of work to be done in terms of the organization to renew our systems, as well as the ERP. And there's also in terms of the security operations center to increase our cyber security capability. We also need to spend a lot of money, and that also comes through in the depreciation charges. That is also then a cost for the organization. If I look at the challenges, I think, like I said, we have a limited contribution from revenue from new revenue streams. So although we do have a lot of new areas that we expand on, the rendering services for other areas, it still remains not a substantial amount. I think the parliamentary funding that we do receive is not sufficient, as already shown there, to cover the full cost of the organization or to maintain our strategic facilities, which is the research and development facilities, was reflected in the different areas, as well as the dockyard. I think just to reflect that the current year is the last year of our significant budget reduction from National Treasury. I think it was more than 150 million that was reduced for this year, and then it will steadily grow again, but it's at a very low rate of just above 3.7%. In terms of our cost structure, I already indicated that the cost structure is increasing at a higher rate than the revenue streams, so it requires strict cost management, and therefore we also look at filling only critical vacancies and making sure that the people are really occupied fully before we appoint. I think we also decided to allocate funding to develop new revenue streams to supplement the parliamentary allocation as well, where we're going to sweat IP, for example. Chair, in terms of the dockyard, they are being managed within the constraints of the money that we do receive. So they are managed on a break-even basis, but there are also still legacy costs that we do cover for the employees that's belonging to the GEMS, that the government medical scheme, that they need to be provided for the future liability, and that we do within the available money as we go along. Chair, then just for giving the committee insight, I think we also reported on the status of records review from the AG itself, the records review that they've performed currently. I think they made certain remarks that we must focus on. I think some of them were the performance measurements that we said that we must make sure that we have alignment with the DoD on the dockyard one, as well as on the new one with the DoD on the capital acquisition portion, that there's alignment in how to measure it, that we don't have qualifications afterwards. So that was done. I think there was also comments that we must still take steps to recover long outstanding debt. We have recovered the full outstanding amount from DPWI. So, and DOD also did pay some of their debt. So there are still some money out there, but we have made a long stride to collect that. I think in terms of concerns raised was also with in terms of the whistleblowing, that we don't complete the investigations timeously. That was being addressed. I think the last will, the previous or the outstanding ones will be done in the first quarter for this year, then all will be completed. In terms of the identified irregular expenditure investigations, some of that was also outstanding, and we also catched up over those and concluded those. I think the AG also then just concluded on the implementation of the ERP that's not concluded and which is delayed. That also creates a risk for Armscor in terms of its preparation of financial statements. Unfortunately, that part is still there as the financial model is still being implemented, so it will only be used in the year after this one. Thank you, Chair.
In terms of the way forward, Armscor is looking at, for the next financial year, looking at modernization and capability renewal. So we're looking at not only maintaining, but modernization. We're also looking at revenue generation and sustainability. We've introduced strategies to ensure that we can generate revenue, and that will then supplement our budget and alleviate our budget constraints. We're looking at triple Ps and global partnerships. Our R&D and innovation is looking at advanced technologies, and our governance and performance is focusing a lot on our war room monitoring, because we would like to ensure that we've got timeous feedback on our projects, where they're currently standing, and also this information is transparent, not only for Armscor, but also for the Department of Defense. And then finally, looking at transformation and human capital, we're looking at the defense industry growth. We support the industry, but we're also looking at how the industry will support Armscor and the Department of Defense. In July of this year, we're looking at an industry in Durban, and we will outline how defense will be supported as well as Armscor through the defense industry. So modernization, innovation, and sustainability is key for us, as well as Armscor aiming to deliver a sustainable organization that generates additional revenue, strengthening its partnerships, containing costs, and delivering groundbreaking technologies. We'd also like to position ourselves as a reliable service provider, firstly to our Department of Defense, who is key to us, and then also our security cluster and other clients. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. That concludes our presentation.
Thank you very much. Then we'll go to honorable members. I see Honorable Munyai, Honorable Niehaus, Honorable Munyai, Honorable Niehaus, so Honorable Harting. Yeah, in that order, Honorable Munyai, you can start. Honorable Kubekile. All right, you can start.
Honorable Chair, allow me to salute men and women from Armscor for their excellent presentation and excellent performance. We proud ourselves with Armscor based on the following reasons. Based on the available information, particularly the 2025-2026 budget estimate or performance, really, we must welcome, because they demonstrate a paradigm shift way above and beyond our expectation and satisfaction, because they move beyond the acquisition to a strategic support for defense in the context of their cooperative performance. We know that the budget, they would want to have more, but the projection being almost around 3 billion which is aligned and allocated with specific performance goals. Honorable Chairperson, it is very clear that we must congratulate them with respect to the program contract management, which has been able to maintain technology requirement to a level of 95% contractual milestone, which really support not only the DoD capital requirements, but demonstrated that they place orders that are exceeding over 800 million. We must welcome that they continue to support the defense industries and also facilitated SADC participation in the international exhibition, manage private sector use of SADC asset around over 56 million. The budget is strategically allocated to ensure that SADC is equipped with high quality, reliable, technological advanced defense material. We also continue to pride ourselves with the excellent performance of Armscor figures because they were able to achieve 90%, 95% contract milestone, as I said earlier, prioritizing management, strategic research, facilities, and R&D in general. So the issue, Honorable Chairperson, that they demonstrated is that we have no doubt at all that under this leadership and this management, Armscor technological requirements are met on time. Similarly, again, at 95% capital conversion target that focuses on order placement phase, requiring Armscor to efficiently transform the Department of Defense or the DoD at high level needs into binding contract with suppliers. Honorable Chairperson, while we note the financial and high-level performance targets that are available and the full details as per this 26-27 corporate plan, I respectfully, Deputy Ministers, recommend that at least they infuse some data that will be able to talk to specific internal KPIs related to budget efficiency, administrative overheads, and detailed project by project strategic appraisal. It's a recommendation, not for now, that in the upcoming presentation, again, next quarter or the next presentation of this similar in nature, if they could please just look into that recommendation. Otherwise, Chairperson, I don't want to ask the question for the sake of asking. I'm very satisfied with the quality of the report, quality of presentation, because it shows that this department have the strategic focus and resolve to build defense capability that support DoD and local defense industry. I thank you, Honorable Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honorable Munyai. Honorable Niaus.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Well, I'm very happy that I'm not deployed to be a praise singer. I'm deployed to make a proper analysis of what is being presented and where there are failures. The plan and the analysis that had been given to us in very generalized terms today continue to present serious structural weaknesses. Evidently, there continued to be an over-reliance on the Department of Defense transfers, 63% of Armscor's revenue, amid a declining defense line. There's a slow commercialization and business development, limited conversion of opportunities into revenue, and there are persistent acquisition delays. Explicitly, they are weaknesses. There are obsolete legacy systems that hinders performance, and there's insufficient funding to sustain strategic facilities. There's a minimal surplus of 1.3 million, which leaves no buffer for risk. I don't understand how it is possible for any one of us as honorable members to talk about Armscor as an organization that delivers, especially when we look at the high-profile project failures, which are concrete evidence of systemic breakdowns. We did not get nearly enough, Chair, in this presentation about Project Hotel, the hydrographic survey vessel, SAS Nelson Mandela at the Sandok Austral shipyard. A total disaster and the antithesis of any concept of delivery. It was initiated to replace the aging SAS Protea and modernize the South African National Defence Force, and specifically the South African Navy's hydrographic capability. We did an oversight visit there, and we know that as of April 2026, the overall project status is unclear. In fact, it is unclear whether that project will ever be delivered. There's no firm handover date, no verified independent completion percentages, and no transparent total project cost provided. We, as members of parliament, as we were there, said that this is yet another expensive Armscor-driven defense procurement failure, marked by delays, by weak oversight, and growing financial risk to taxpayers. Billions in public funds expended with little tangible outcome. Right there, next to the Project Hotel, we found SAS Isandlwana frigate refit, which is another broader Armscor collapse in terms of service delivery. The refit of the SAS Isandlwana commenced on the 6th of May 2024 at a contracted cost of 597 million, with the original handover that was scheduled for the 31st of March 2026. Today, on the 13th of May, this project remains incomplete despite the deadline having passed. The progress has been pitifully slow, with earlier indications of a possible slippage to June 2026. I can tell you, Chair, as we talk today, that deadline is certainly not going to be met. Chair, we had oversight visits to the Armscor dockyard in Simonstown, a strategic national facility. And we've heard what the South African Navy and also the Chief of the South African Navy had said about the failure of Armscor in the Simonstown dockyard, to the point where the chief of the South African Navy had said it may be better that that dockyard is left by Armscor and it can be totally taken over by the South African Navy. This dockyard's poor performance check is not isolated, and it certainly includes the various other performances of Armscor, including Isandlwana and also Project Hotel. I repeat what I said in my first sentence when I started speaking. It reflects systematic failures across the whole support and delivery program of Armscor. I'm sorry, Chair, but I cannot come to any other conclusion but that Armscor, as it stands today, despite the gloss that we were given in this presentation, is a crime scene. And it has been reflected also in the deeply flawed tender that Armscor managed of the border patrol vehicles, a matter that we've raised in detail in this committee. So, Chair, I'm not going to go into various questions that I wanted to ask because I do not believe that this glossy presentation of failure and crime, because that is what characterizes Armscor, deserves for me to use the few minutes that we have today to ask those questions. I will rather send those questions in writing, and I will insist that I get detailed answers, because now the representatives of Armscor are simply going to use the fact that we have a few minutes left in this very rushed meeting, totally unsatisfactory meeting that we have, not to answer my questions. I will present my questions, and I insist, Chair, that these questions must be answered within a period of the next 7 working days, which is the standard that we've used. I do not think we can allow Armscor in its current form and the way in which it abuses the funds that it receives, and the lack of delivery that it has. The lack of delivery that we've seen at the Durban shipyard, that we've seen with Project Hotel, with Isandlwana, and many other projects to be allowed. I saw that the Armscor representative who was doing this presentation said, well, we've dealt with all the issues around concerns raised by whistleblowers. Most definitely not. And I can assure you, Chair, as I'm sitting here, that I'm receiving extremely disturbing information from whistleblowers that are highly regarded and people who know exactly what they talk about. I give you my guarantee that as a representative of the people, as a member of the Economic Freedom Fighters, and someone who is not a praise singer, but who wants to serve my people, and who believes that the funds that are given to Armscor, the extensive funds on which Armscor exists, which comes from government, has to be accounted for. In the next couple of weeks, I'm going to keep you very busy. Make yourself ready for much more to be dealt with regards to whistleblowers coming forth, blowing your cover, and showing what you presented to us today is a glossy misrepresentation. Because as we sit here in this committee today, Chair, the Kaiser has no clothes on. Armscor is a disaster. It is a crime scene, and it has to be dealt with in the strongest possible way, also through our various law enforcement agencies. The time to spend 2.45 billion on Project Hotel and to have to show nothing except a rusting hull is coming to an end. And we as a committee have the responsibility to take this on head on, not to sing praises, not to talk all kinds of generalities, but to deal with the issues as they stand. I conclude. My detailed, systematic report and analysis of this horrible presentation that we received today, together with my detailed questions, will be forwarded to the administration of our committee. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Harte.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I will not dwell into the points of some of the points that of concern that Honorable Nehaus has mentioned about the Isandlwana and the hydrographic survey vessel. I think we will have to spend some time in future on that and the dockyard. But just I thought when Honorable Nehaus was mentioning it that it is significant that the fourth slide actually shows that there's a dockyard in Durban, an Armscor dockyard in Durban, which is not. Chair, I have mentioned this issue before. What we have here is the Armscor corporate plan for 2026, tabled in March, and doing the long-term planning. Yet, it is strongly based on a policy directive coming from the Journey to Greatness, which was only, as the Minister has indicated to us, only approved by Cabinet on 2 months later, on the 6th of May. Now, obviously, you will agree that this creates a serious parliamentary oversight concern. You will recall that we requested Journey to Greatness presentation, but because it was at Cabinet, we were not allowed access to it. It remains for Parliament a highly secretive document. Yet, a corporate plan is based on that. Now, if the Journey to Greatness was already... I beg your pardon.
What is happening?
I don't know who's interrupting, Chair. Anyhow, if the Journey to Greatness, so-called Journey to Greatness, was already mature enough to shape a force design and acquisition priorities, and also determine Armscor strategic direction before even Cabinet approval, then the serious questions need to be asked about this. And it was not approved. We do not even know if Cabinet amended the Journey to Greatness. And this raises serious questions. It was Armscor actually doing its planning on an unapproved draft? And if it was approved in substance but withheld from Parliament, then Parliament is deliberately placed in a very precarious position. We have to do oversight on the Defence Force, on Denel, on Armscor, and on the policy documents that they base their planning on the force design. But we have got no insight into that. So, and then coming with that, there's long-term planning being done on a document that we know had not been approved by Parliament, but also there's no contract or even any indication that it will be funded by Treasury. And then we are exactly in the same position where we South Africa, and we're suffering the consequences of the unfunded 2015 Defence Review. But I need to get some answers on that. I can't think of something in any democracy that something like this can happen. So the question then, when will Armscor table the full capability assumptions, force design implications, acquisition priorities flowing from this so-called journey to greatness? So we need to assess whether the journey to greatness has not actually replaced the only document that we have that we can work on, and that's the Defence Review 2015. Has it done that? And why is it avoiding parliamentary oversight? So, and then I come to a specific question on the a binding agreement with Treasury approved by Parliament to move the defence funding from 0.7% towards the 1.5% of GDP target. And how much of Armscor corporate plan actually depends on this funding assumption that has not been approved anywhere? So are we dealing here with another dream that will never materialize? If that is so, I think we are wasting everybody's time. Chair, then coming to some detail, I would like to know which of the major SANDF platforms are currently being kept operational, very operational, through repeated life extension programs because of replacement funding does not exist. So we need to know where we're going, and we know of all the failures that we have along the way. Sure, I will conclude with that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Plugis. You'll be followed by.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, mine will be very short. As we all know that Armscor is there in supporting the South African National Defence Force, while they must also remain financially viable. Chair, I think I only want to have two pertinent questions. The one is on the dockyard, on the issue of the funding, how are they going to address the shortfalls, especially in Simonstown Naval Dockyard, to ensure that at least that dockyard remain viable. That is my first question. My second one, Chair, is on the biggest matter and the long outstanding delays on Project Hoof Easter, and I don't see it here as to how that problem is going to be resolved in the APP, and what are the financial risks for it to remain stalled. So those are basically my two questions on this matter, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Nontenja.
Thank you, Chairperson. Mine is a clarity seeking on the decrease of capital assets from 62.4 million to 4.7 million, and also on office equipment from 57.5 million to 16.1. And there's an increase on computer equipment of more than 100%, from 104.3 million to 322 million. And also on building and infrastructure, there's an increase from 107.8 million to 176.3 million. If they can clarify for each of these assets, what caused the decreases and the increases. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Honorable Kubukeli.
Thank you, Chair. A short one. I just need clarity because I think when we were in Durban, we heard that the naval base, the maintenance is dependent on public works because all the facilities are maintained by public works. But now I become a little bit confused because dockyard is there. It's part of the facility. Now, and the dockyard is deteriorating in a very bad manner. And same as the dockyard in Simonstown, which is deteriorating. Now, I do not know really whether Armscor, because I can see that there is a challenge there, because even if you look at the budget has decreased, which means dockyard will not be ready anytime soon. So now, what is the plan? What is it that can be done? What is it that Armscor needs to be assisted with to ensure, because these are very strategic facilities, like all the defense facilities, but specifically these ones, the Navy ones, because Navy, it's, I believe in Navy, it's the most, strategic one, because as long as arms of Eland or its defense force, because that is defender all ulwandle elikhulu kangaka. So really I need Eland or clarity, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, honorable members, for your submission. I would like to invite.
Chair, sorry, before, I just wanted to raise something short, 1 second. To you, Chair.
Okay, Whip.
In our previous meeting, Chair, at the Castle Board there, you ruled that we will have a special meeting to address matters of the oversight report independently. I wanted to know whether that decision still stands or it's a matter that can still be discussed now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Whip. I think you are aware also that we'll not have time. It's already 5 o'clock now, and the meeting is scheduled to end at 5 o'clock. And that's why before I go back to Armscor, I thought that I give over to the DM, General Holomisa, to make his input so that I can make a ruling.
Honorable Chairperson and honorable members, thank you for your input. What is needed now is for the Secretariat of the Portfolio Committee, as well as Armscor and Denel, and highlight to the Minister or Ministry the issues raised by honorable members. There are serious allegations which have been made here, which at the end of the day will point to the role of the executive. So don't be shy or be intimidated by the MPs and so on, but just stick to the issues of governance. Honorable members did tabulate those problems. So therefore, what is needed now is to respond to those points and also address some of them. As far as the journey to greatness, honorable members, you will recall that in our last meeting with the minister, we did agree in that meeting that the Portfolio Committee Secretariat and researchers must work with the Office of the Minister with a view to get a briefing of this cabinet document, which has just been approved, before we go to the Portfolio Committee on Finances and so on. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Honorable DM. I fully agree that we will have to get the Secretariat and the department as well as our entities to work with the Secretariat to respond to some of the questions that were raised by members, because some of them have got serious legal implication. It will be important that we get written responses so that if we may end up in the court of law, then we must have a transcript of records of our engagement, both as the portfolio committee, as well as yourselves as entities. I think it's going to be important also that from the side of the Secretariat, working together with the entities and the ministry, that we finalize our report in terms of oversight and exchange notes both with the ministry in terms of answers and schedule a special meeting of the portfolio committee or an extraordinary meeting to deal with that particular report in terms of the oversight report that would include Project Hotel, Project Isandlana, and all those outstanding capital programs of Armscor together with the National Defence Force. The matter related to the armored vehicles, I know it's in court, so it's sub judice. That one will be guided by the outcome of the court in terms of what would be the way forward. So I think that particular matter stands as it is. I would not want us to engage, but take this opportunity from my side to thank all the entities, including their boards. A full complement of boards was here today. The CEOs and all the senior management team, the honorable members, the support staff, both from the ministry as well as the portfolio committee. Thank Honorable Deputy Minister Richard Mukungo, Deputy Minister General Bantu Holomisa, and all the members who are present here today. I wish to thank you on behalf of the portfolio committee. I think written responses from entities and the boards will request them within the next 7 days to be forwarded to the Secretariat so that we can engage them and find a way forward. But from our side, we would not want to be in contempt of the parliamentary programs. We expect that yourselves as entities, corrections be done tonight and tomorrow so that you make your submission to the Secretariat for Friday. Friday, we will consolidate a full report that will be an attachment to the budget tabling next week, Wednesday, and that will be submitted to Treasury so that we get their concurrence for the budget. So I would like to say thank you very much from the Portfolio Committee, and thank you very much for your submissions and your contribution. We hope through cooperation, engagement, vision, and national interest and patriotism, we will work towards ensuring that South Africa becomes a safer place. Because ours is not political gymnastics and gimmicks. It is to ensure national security and safety of the South Africans, peace and stability in our nation. With that, thank you very much. The meeting is adjourned until further notice. Bye.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Siyabonga, Sir.
Thank you, Chair.